We began this programme by remembering Barry Hills and his life and his legacy, everything he'd contributed to the sport. And that is the way we end it as well, in the company of the great Steve Cauthen, for whom Barry Hills was a mentor and inspiration, instrumental in bringing Steve's career to Europe as well. Steve, good morning.
Nick, good morning, buddy. How you doing?
Very well. We remember Barry very fondly, but I don't think any of us can have had quite such a close connection with him as you did. Just explain why he was so important to you.
Well, you know, he helped make me who I am. You know, he really. I was still 18. I mean, I had a great family. You know, my parents were great, but of course I spent a lot of my time away and working. Of course, when I went across the sea to Britain, my parents couldn't stay. So I was basically I was living with Barry and Penny. They took me in like I was one of their own. And Barry helped make me the man I am. He remotivated me to. Because I think I was kind of, after I got there and our horses got the virus and whatever, I kind of was out playing golf and having, enjoying myself, relaxing a little bit. And Barry said, "What the hell? We got to get on, get things going here." And, he just really got me wanting to, be the best that I could be again. We had so many good times together. He definitely was a different sort of, person that I'd ever met before. I mean, Mr. Combustible, was a good name for him. But Penny, who took me in, and looked after me I think Barry used to call her Mother Hen because of me, because she looked after me so well. She helped me to understand, how to handle him and do whatever. And just things really just kept getting better and better. We worked well together. I was lucky that, once I'd ridden for him for a while, I knew how to ride his horses, and he didn't really have to tell me, what to do. He just let me go, and that's how I liked it.
And you'd already had so much success in America. You were already a Triple Crown winning rider on a firm by that point, and you came to Europe to relaunch your career. But for all the success you'd had in the saddle, I guess there was so much about life and living in a different country and just sort of growing up, really, that you hadn't done. I suppose everything was upside down for you at that point.
It really was a little bit, I mean, and I was in a totally different culture, and so I had to, learn just how, everything worked over in Europe, and traveling a lot, I mean, in America, obviously, you're kind of at one track for a while and then you move to another one, but, you're sort of it's not such quite the same sort of traveling as, day to day in Britain. And, had to get used to that, traveling across to, France and Ireland and wherever at the weekends, and, riding in big races there. And, it was just, learning, I'd never, played golf really. Barry bought me my first set of golf clubs at some, big, it was a, fundraiser for something. I can't remember. And, he got me a set of clubs because, he and Sangster and everybody played golf, when they'd go to, Cheshire, to the Chester, meet and whatever, and various places. And, just lots, just so many things. He was, I just I knew after a short time that he had my best interest at heart. And that's a special place to be with somebody you work with. It doesn't happen that often.
And we can't leave this conversation without having a look back at the 1979 2,000 guineas, Steve. Just talk to me about your memories of this day on Tap on Wood.
Well, again, Barry really was he was an amazing trainer. He did some amazing things while I was with him. One of those was, Tap on Wood. We had this horse, and he ran in the Guineas trial the first day I rode at Salisbury. but the ground was soft. You know, he ran a good race, but he couldn't pick up when the real running happened, and he finished fourth, I think. You know, he was probably, he wasn't beaten a long way, but he was, you know, well beat. And so then Barry didn't give up, you know, and I think he also knew, you know, he was better on top of the ground, so he ended up sending him up to Thirsk, and I think Ernie Johnson rode him, and he won up at Thirsk, and Penny rode this horse all the time, you know, she looked after him, you know, and he was a bonny little horse, but when the ground started getting firmer, you know, he started working better. We were working, and eventually Barry said, you know, we're going to run him. He was 20-1 outsider. Chris was in there, young generation, you know, some pretty darn good horses were in the race. But Barry, you know, he said, look, just, you know, it was a 20-horse field. I can't remember, at least 20 horses, I think. And he said, just, you know, relax him, you know, get him at the back, or, you know, not necessarily at the back, but just tuck him in wherever you want to be. And anyway, it worked out that I was able to tuck him in, get him relaxed, and I had Chris in my sights the whole way, you know. And so I just sat there and was keeping my eye on Chris, and we got to the hill, you know, at Newmarket, and the dip or whatever, I can't, you know, and I just kicked around, you know, kicked past Chris and, you know, made a run for it, you know, and luckily, you know, he was good enough to hang in there. Young generation made a run at us, and then, you know, but we held on, and, you know, I think that was probably the only one. I think Chris was beaten one other time maybe at Ascot, but that was it. So he was it was a great day. I mean, it was really the day I felt like the English, you know, race goers accepted me as, like, you know, hey, we're glad we're glad you're here. You know, you're part of the scenery.
And you were, and so successfully for so many years, and so much of it down to the man we're remembering today. Steve, thanks so much.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, good to talk to you, Nick. And, you know, like I said, we'll miss him. But you know, he was a great man, and it's kind of like I said to Penny, you know, with you know, I lost my dad a while back, and, you know, it's amazing how when you know, their voices come in your head so often when you're thinking of, you know, you're stuck with situations and their voices come in your head and, you know, remind you that they're still with you.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.